do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the July 4th, 2023 edition of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., also referred to as the CS, Counter-Racist Code Show. We thank you for tuning in to the show for today, and we really appreciate that. As usual, to get in contact with the show, you need to contact this number, which is 516-453-9921. And you can listen to the show, or if you have a comment or a question for Mr. Fuller, press the number 1 button, and you will automatically get in line, and you will be heard. If you are a first-time caller, make sure that you tell the call screener your name. As a matter of fact, give the call screener your name anyway when you contact that number so that I can read it and give you the proper introduction. But the first-time callers can give the call screener your name, and we have a special little program set up so that you can be heard. You can also contact me or Mr. Fuller through my Gmail address, which is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. That probably will not be read today because the Gmails are really stacked up there, and we try to get to them as expeditiously as we can, but the calls come first, so the Gmails will be on hold, but eventually I will get to them and we'll read them, give you a notice that I have received it, and then, of course, when I do read it, I will also let you know. I would also ask, please, ma'am, please, sir, do not write me a long novel because I cannot, we don't have enough radio time to read it like that. So make it short and sweet so that Mr. Fuller can answer your question. As many of you know, Mr. Fuller uses exhaustively definitions and examples to make it very clear so that confusion is limited. You don't want no confusion on that. So bear in mind that when you do ask that, and even for the regular callers on the line, he will use those examples. Now, some people think that maybe it's too long, but this is what he does because it is very clear when you're dealing with racism, which is white supremacy, you have to be clear and sure of what you're talking about because confusion reigns in every way. So that is why that happens. There's also another way that you can join this energy, and that is through the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and when you get there, you want to get the programs menu, and on the programs menu, when you click that, you have the opportunity to click on the shows, and when you click on the shows, you want to make sure that you get the Produce Justice show, and then you click on that in the chat room. Format is available for you to get in there, and sometimes something would be said in there that I will lift off of the chat room, but please, ma'am, please, sir, do not use the chat room to ask me a question, to ask Mr. Fuller. That is what the main line number is for, and occasionally that's what the Gmail is for. But the chat room is a completely different animal, so you have to judge yourself accordingly. In other words, it will not be read if you ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller. Okay. All the books are in. You can go to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. And all the books are in. All the shows, past shows are on that site. And any type of information concerning justice, compensatory justice, is right on that web site that you can go to and get all that information, which is very, very good. Okay. Don't forget now when you call in, because I'm looking at the screen here and I see some names. Looks like somebody from the Detroit area, 313, that's not given the call screen or your name, and also the 262 prefix has not given the name. So please, ma'am, please, sir, do that. Thank you for all those who are joining the chat. Okay, I believe that is all that I have to do. So let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Yes, sir. Okay, very good. Okay, for those that are new to the program and for those who are regular listeners, we have a little segment called The Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, what are your thoughts or expressions on your mind this morning, July 4th, 2023?
I received a printout from someone named Levi, but I can't make out the last name. But the person made a statement that since black people are subject to the white supremacists and that white people control everything, we should give up. Black people should give up on trying to do anything because white people control everything. That's what he says in his email. He or she. I just have the first name, but I think it's a male. And my response, according to the code, is no one should ever be opposed to white people or any other people being in control, because some people are going to be in control of some things. And if a person happens to be smart enough to be in control of everything, then that is a person who, logically speaking, should be in control of everything, because that person is in control of everything. The person is smart enough to be in control. If it's just one person, and that one person is smart enough to be in control of everything, then that person who is smart enough to be in control of everything should be, logically speaking, in charge of everything. If it's just one person, or if it's 1,000 persons, or 10 million people, logically speaking. But being in control should produce constructive results. That's if anybody's in control of anything that affects him or herself or someone else. Everything that everybody does should produce a constructive result, or all constructive results, because all results of any move that a person makes or millions of people make should produce constructive results every time, without fail. And if you fail the first time, you keep trying. So I'll answer that question that way about black people should give up. Nobody gives up, or should, according to the code, compensatory logic, on doing whatever it takes to get the most constructive result, and even in the process of doing it. That's the assignment of everybody on the planet. Every person on the planet should only do at all times, not just sometimes, that which produces constructive results. And so far, according to the evidence, there's no person that hasn't done or is not doing, who's breathing now, everything that produces constructive results. But that should be the assignment in capital letters of every person on the planet. So that's the only thing that a black person should focus on, is it getting constructive results. This white people controlling everything are all of the constructive results of whatever they do? The answer is no. What about black people? The things that black people do, does it produce constructive results? No. Not everything. That's proven every second. Nobody is doing only that which produces constructive results. So nobody on the planet, and that includes what I'm saying now for the July the 4th, 2023, right at this moment, nobody, no person on the planet is doing only what produces constructive results. Because in order to do that, you have to show a record of every move that you make, every breath that you take. You produce a constructive result in whatever you say to a person. And the most constructive result, in other words, better than anybody else can ever do it. How many people are qualified to do that? None. So nobody has bragging rights. And therefore that leads me into also this July the 4th thing. Nobody should be bragging about anything. And just talking about having fireworks, they've already made a big mistake right there. That's not a constructive result. That's not an example for anybody to follow. We don't need fireworks in that particular form, because in commemoration of an event or a series of events back in 1776, it is called fireworks, meaning you're working with fire. And when you read the history of what went on July the 4th, it all had to do with people killing people. Although the reasons might have been so-called noble, doesn't call for a celebration. Why? Because people died, that's why. By the death, people causing the death. You're the cause of death deliberately of someone else. You don't have anything to brag about, regardless of what the reasons were. Because there is no quote-unquote reason for a person killing another, logically speaking. It's not ever supposed to happen, period. And when it does, it means everybody's out of order. They couldn't find a better way of going about getting things done that should be done. So I'm finished with that, and I'm ready to take questions.
All righty. We thank you for that, Mr. Fuller. Again, to get in contact with the show, you need to call this number, which is 516-453-9921. And make sure that you press the number 1 button if you have a question or comment. Okay. Let's go here this is the fourth and final edition of a question that this person has written, and you've answered the first three questions, Mr. Fuller, as I scroll down to the final question, if I can find it. And it's not coming up here. I'll just say Mr. Mario and leave it at that. I'm looking for it right here, and it's not coming up here. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm looking at my Gmail here. The first part of it is, but can't get it up here, Mario. I don't know what happened here. Okay, in the meantime, I will go to Deontay in Detroit. Deontay, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning. Happy holiday. Okay, I got a VGQ and two questions. I'm going to try to make it quick. The VGQ was, I just wanted to, thank Mr. Fuller for the book because there's so much information in the book. It's profound, really. There's no book like this that really tell you what to do, like Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. says. It's a lot of books that give you information, but this book is one of a kind, and I appreciate the fact that it's $30 because it makes it that much more credible. My question is, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., you say that white supremacy is the world's strongest religion. So do that mean that it's our religion too?
Does that mean that all religions are what?
No, because you say that white supremacy is the world's strongest religion, do that mean that that's what our religion is too? Like automatically?
All religions are, I'm trying to get that word. All religions are what?
Is white supremacy our religion too? As a black person, is that my religion also?
No, your religion is your religion, but I'm saying white supremacy is the strongest religion. Of all of their religions combined, there's no religion right now on July the 4th, 2023, on planet Earth that is stronger, has more power than the religion, in capital letters, of white supremacy. None. And all of them put together are not as strong as that religion. Everybody bows down to that religion, either directly or indirectly. Whatever the white supremacists say, that goes. That's more powerful than anything. More powerful than what all the religions, name any, or put them all together and see which one is the most powerful. So when the white supremacists speak, that's the bottom line. Everybody else is out of business. When the white supremacists act, the evidence shows everybody hops. White and non-white, if they are not white supremacists. Everybody on the planet. You have hundreds, I understand, maybe thousands, of tribal religions among non-white people. And they most certainly back off with whatever they say their religion is. When the white supremacist said, your religion is nothing to me. You have a dark skin. You are a person of color. Your religion means nothing to me. And you will adopt whatever I say as being your religion. The parts that I say, and the parts of your religion that disagree with what I say, you are going to hurt real bad as a result of you making that decision. Because no religion is more powerful than the religion of white supremacy, and I can prove it to you in about 3 seconds. And from what I have seen, Neely Fuller Jr., when they say that, those who do say that, directly and indirectly, I've seen it always works. People back down. A person says, well, my religion is Christianity, and it tells me this, and it tells, not when it comes to me. That's what the white supremacists say. You better pick out something in that book that guarantees that you're not going to oppose me. I don't care what you call yourself with your dark skin. You're going to obey me. Now, you can pray to whoever you want to, but you are going to obey me. And I don't have to tell you that because you know it. Your grandparents and everybody else. What else? What other religion you got? And some black person will say, well, my religion is Confucianism. Now, I don't care what it is. The white supremacists respond by saying, I can prove to you in 2 minutes that you ain't going to practice no part of your religion if I don't approve of it. Now, a lot of it, because it's nothing but fluff, I'll let you do it. You can go through your little ceremonies. I don't care about you dancing around a fire or nothing like that. I don't care anything about that. That's the white supremacist speaking when you start talking about religion. But you are going to do what I say. If I tell you to stop dancing around the fire, you're going to stop dancing. And if you don't believe it, try me. And every time, it's always worked. So that's the compensatory code response to that. You don't ever deny truth. You say, well, that hurts my feelings. I mean, if that's so, well, maybe you need to go to the drawing board and figure out what to do about it. That's what I do. All right, I'm ready for the next question, I guess.
Okay, and what was your last question, quickly, Deontay?
The second question was, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., you say that black people interactions are tacky, trashy,
you're breaking up here.
terroristic.
I'm not getting all that. Mr. Fuller, can you hear him? Because I can't hear him or you.
I can hear him.
Yeah, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., you say that black people interactions are tacky, trashy, and terroristic. Can you explain more what terroristic means?
Terroristic means putting fear in people. And right now, the fad is to go around shooting people, as many as you can, among black people. That's been for some time. So there's nothing to brag about on the part of white people and black people. Nobody's got bragging rights on this planet. Why? Because people are killing people. That's why. Just on that alone, that disqualifies any kind of people strutting around on any day, including the 4th of July, with their chest stuck out, talking about what a great world this is. That is crazy. That is insanity to the nth degree. People do interact with each other 3 ways, dominantly. Every now and then you have some accidents, some incidents that go the other way. But the 3 factors, as the textbook says, in people's behavior, all people, tacky, trashy, and terroristic. These are the dominant motivating factors in 2023 of the majority population, if not all of the population. I say all, even populations I haven't heard of, based on the evidence that has come to me. Tacky is the number 1. That's the largest. Or you can say that all of them put together come down to, and this is why I put in the book, tacky, trashy. Black people's interaction is trashy. Our cultures are trashy. We sing songs and interact, and call words when we communicate, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere. We glorify trash. That's the dominant black culture. We glorify trash. Just walk down the street and listen to the way that people talk to each other, black people talking to each other on the cell phone all day long. You can't say that's not trashy. That's trashy. We even call it that and brag about it in the Northwestern Hemisphere. Hey, man, you're talking trash. That's exactly what it is. And we glorify it. And we wallow in it. And we call it black culture. Does it have a constructive effect? No constructive effect anywhere in it. Nothing constructive. In fact, black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere have been trained by the white supremacists. Out of the three cultures, tacky is bad enough, because white people's interaction with each other and with the world as a large, white supremacy itself is all about being tacky when it comes to people interacting with each other, and trashy, because they're the ones that taught black people more trash than anybody, and terroristic, in answer to the question about terrorism. Terrorism is causing fear. You can't walk out your door if you're black in the Northwestern Hemisphere. You better be afraid getting on the bus or anything else. Don't think about having a party, a block party among black people. Are you kidding? And you ain't terrified? I'm missing something somewhere.
All righty. All right. Well, thank you, Deontay, for your call. And let's take a break here. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and we do thank you very much for doing that. To get in contact with today's program, you know the numbers, but for those who are new, 516-453-9921 is the number that you call. Make sure you press the number 1 button so that you can be heard when you make your call. Please do not be long with that. Just ask your question and then give Mr. Fuller an opportunity to answer your question. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Now, it probably will not be read today. Any Gmails that I do read today are ones that are stacked up and are next in line to be read, and that is contingent upon how many calls that we get. In other words, just because you send a Gmail today does not necessarily mean that it will be read on today's program, but at some point in time, it will be read, so don't worry about that, and I'll send you a symbol of that. You can also join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to make sure that you click on the programs menu, and then the show menu will come up. You want that shows, and in particular the Produce Justice show. That is what you want. You get in there, and then the chat room is available for you to get into what you can get into and enjoy the conversations. And remember that, first of all, do not ask me a question in the chat to ask Mr. Fuller, because that's not going to happen, Captain. That's what the phone number is for and the Gmail is for. But occasionally I will take something from the chat room and make a mention to Mr. Fuller about that and have Mr. Fuller comment on that. that. So those are the ways that you can get in contact with this show. Most importantly is the book. That's why we're here to talk about, and he gives examples of how to produce justice, or how about this, suggestions. These are not mandatory, but suggestions on how to combat and deal with the racist practices that are upon us at all times. Then you can go to producejustice.com to get the book and read the different things that are on there. I think there are 2 shows that are on there. Mr. Fuller has one of the Carl Nelson show is on there, and also what he said on the Rock Newman show is now up. And you can get that. Someone called me this week about that, and it is up there because I checked with the producer, and Mr. Fuller's a view, or not view, but Mr. Fuller was on the Rock Newman show, and it is all on there. So make sure that you do that. If you missed it, make sure that you get a chance to get that. So, there's something else that I was missing, but okay. All righty. Let's go back to the phone calls and Gmails, and I did find that Gmail, so let's go back to that. Mr. Fuller answered the first 3 Gmails, or rather the first 3 questions in this Gmail that this person sent in, and he was basically dealing in the area of sex. And his last question, Mr. Fuller, for you, question number 4, he says, are the views on racism of non-whites who are in a sexual relationship with whites less valid?
All views are valid, and it's up to, according to the code, that's why it's called a United Independent. You can be united in your goals, and this is all in your head, it's all in my head, that people should be united, but united as individuals. Because you start off being a person first, and you don't turn loose of that, not ever. I mean, everybody has their own ideas, and those ideas should be given regard, should be evaluated. For what? Constructive results. Put those ideas to a test. And the leadership, according to the code, is never a person. You never use a person as a leader. Why? Because people make mistakes. I've only heard of just 1 or 2 people in the history of the universe that didn't make a mistake. So far, from what I've heard, and I won't even name I'll name one because I was told outright that this person didn't make a mistake. I can't mention others because I don't really know, since I never met any of the persons that I'm talking about: Confucius, Buddha, Moses, Jesus of Nazareth. Now, that's the only one that I've heard that didn't make a mistake. I've heard of Jesus of Nazareth, and that's the only person in all the history of the world who never made a mistake. I've heard preachers say that, because Jesus was on an assignment, but I'm not going to delve any further into that, because the code says don't dip too far into anybody's religion, because now you're setting off confusion. Let the other person just talk about their religion, whatever it is, and you don't make any comments except to have another question and abide by that question from that person. That's what you do about religion at all times. Otherwise, religions of any kind, when you start talking about it and you are not of that religion that you're talking about, the code says don't do nothing but ask questions. don't make comments about somebody else's religion. Just refer to the person that you got it from, the information about that religion. Because that person is supposed to know what his or her religion is. So I'm just putting that in. I'm throwing that in as some very important information. Because they're talking about Palestine and the Jews, and people talk about things like anti-Semitism. First thing you want to know is, are they talking about religion? And you don't want anybody to talk about that religion that they're talking about except a person who is of that religion. You don't talk about somebody else's religion, period, ever. You want to know about a person's religion, talk to the person. And point to that same person anytime anybody else disagrees with what was said. You say, well, I didn't say that. You always be in position to say that. I did not say that. This person said that he was a Mormon. And that's who I talk to. I don't want anybody talking to me about Mormonism except a person who is a Mormon. Because I am not going to discuss it. Period. I'm going to ask 3 questions. What is the name of your religion? That's after if I talk to the person about religion at all. Mm-hmm. What does your religion require you to do? And number 3, what does your religion require you to do when you interact with me? And by the way, according to the code, since it seems like I might be deviating from the question, anything that a person does is according to that person's religion, unless the person is lying or making a mistake in giving the title to that religion. The religion is what you do. That's it.
That's it.
Not just what you say. It includes what you say, but it's also what you do. Whatever I say you do, that's your religion. Why? Because you're doing it. If you believe in it, what you're doing. Now, you can be forced by somebody else to do something that's not according to your religion, but then don't say that that's your religion if you're forced to deviate from your religion. You're supposed to stick with your religion 24/7 and don't skip a minute at all times, no matter how hot it gets, how cold. According to what? Logic.
Okay, according to logic. Okay. All righty. Let's see here. Continuing with this Gmail before we go back to the phone lines. This person wanted to know, it says, hi, Mr. Fuller. I want to know, according to the code, if a white supremacist can be a victim of other white supremacists. Now, the reason I'm asking is that on sites such as YouTube, in books and online, some people claim there are cures for things such as cancer, diabetes, etc. I've noticed that a lot of people who die of a disease such as cancer are also white supremacists, along with those who are trying to cure cancer. A prime example of this is the woman who had Emmett Till killed, who is rumored to have died of cancer. I'm in the process of reading the book. He wanted you to respond to that.
Well, if I understand the question, here again, I have problems, as everybody knows by now, understanding questions. So I always say don't move to the second question until the first question has been answered in any conversation. So what was that first question?
The first question is, really the main question is, if a white supremacist can be a victim of other white supremacists.
Yeah, I think that's what I heard.
Yes.
Yes, if they both agree that they are white supremacists, but they are not. If they are two white people, a white person is not a victim of another white person who is a white supremacist, because a white person cannot be a victim of white supremacy. But a white person can be a victim of another white person. The white supremacist is a political and religious category. That's separate from a white person. Every white person may or may not be a white supremacist. Most likely that would not be true, according to the evidence that is acceptable to me as a victim of white supremacy, because I've seen white babies in cribs, and I noticed to my satisfaction, a baby, say 6 months old, 2 months old, or newly born, is not a white supremacist, according to my judgment, because I make that judgment call. The victims of white supremacists always make the judgment calls about whether or not they are victims of white supremacy. I say no white baby 6 months old that I've ever heard of or ever seen, I have concluded, can be. There are some exceptions, maybe, of white supremacists, because they don't know their colors. They don't know one color from another, as far as I can tell. Also, a senile white person who used to be a racist and may have identified him or herself as one, I would say is not a racist if he or she doesn't know one color from another. You have to know your colors in order to be a racist. But everybody else who's white in the system of white supremacy, and I'm just squeezing this in, should, according to the code, the counter-racist code, be suspected of being a racist. Based on what? Being able to be one. Every white person who is able to be a racist should be expected by the victims of white supremacy to being one, until proven to that particular person that he or she is not one. Why? Because I don't think there is in existence a list of every white person who is a racist and every white person who is not. I've never heard of such a list. Now, the white person who says that they're racist, well, you take them at their word. That's code.
Okay. That's code. Okay. Okay. Key word in there was should be suspected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Any white person who is able. Now, that's another key word.
Okay, able.
You got to be able to be a racist, because you used to be one, but now you're brain dead. Most likely, you're not able. You can't tell a spoon from a fork, or tell a hat from a coat. Most likely, you can't tell your colors either. You don't know one color from another. And to be a white supremacist, you have to know your colors. You have to know blue from red. You have to know brown from black.
Okay.
It's the white supremacists mostly who said black and brown people.
Alrighty.
It was the white supremacists, I suspect, invented that term. But it's not logical, because most black people are brown. If you can tell the difference between black and brown, most black people are brown. Now, that sounds like some type of contradiction, but it isn't. yellow people are black if they're classified as black. These are political classifications. We need to think about all the classifications. Black and brown? Who are you talking about? President Obama, when you look at him, it looks brown. It depends on what kind of light he's standing in. Somebody might mistake him a block away as being white. Maybe.
Okay.
Lots of black people look like they're white people. I mean, sure enough, white.
Yes.
And I'm talking about up close, 1 foot away. The reason I know that, because I have some in my care unit.
Okay.
The one we call family.
Family.
I think a lot of people, black people, can say that. So what are we talking about here? See, we got to get rid of the confusion. Because when you're confused, you're through booking.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's move on here. Whatever happened to Herschel Walker? Is that in the chat? Herschel Walker. Okay, anyway. Corey in Milwaukee, get ready. I'm getting ready to move this cursor or thing over here for you. Okay, Corey, wait a minute. Here we go. Dollar Bill in New York, hang on. This is Corey. Corey, Milwaukee. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, Corey.
My question, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., is sex being the most powerful, one of the most powerful people activities, what is the constructive result that two black people, male and female, should expect from engaging in sexual intercourse?
Two black people engaging in sexual intercourse?
Yes, black male.
And the question
black
is
female.
what? If they're doing what?
What should be the constructive result that they're looking for from engaging in sexual intercourse together, black male with black female?
The most constructive result, if they have offspring. In the system of white supremacy, it doesn't get more constructive than that.
But Mr. Fuller, and if they are beyond the age or unable to produce offspring, what is the constructive result? See, it comes down to this question: what is the act of sexual intercourse for? What are you trying to achieve? It's two things: better communications, that's one, and producing offspring, that's the other. Constructive communications. Some people even call it that. They call it communications. You're communicating with each other. You have something in common. You're getting as close physically as you possibly get. If you have the correct intentions. Because sexual intercourse itself doesn't necessarily reveal that you got the correct intentions. There's something else that's even called rape. That's not mutual. Because it's not mutual, it's not constructive. Constructive sexual intercourse is to improve communications. You've started off by talking, maybe. You should start off by doing a whole lot of talking before you head for the bedroom and sexual intercourse. That should be the procedure everywhere for everybody. You communicate first using every other means of communication before you head for the ultimate between male and female, and that is the act of sexual intercourse. All the talking should be done prior to that.
in order to do what? Have the most constructive results. Many a person, usually female, saying, I didn't know. Those 3 words. Fatal words. I didn't know you were like that before we did all this, going to bed and feeling on each other and doing things to the ultimate degree. And then we started talking, and I found out things about you that I didn't know. Well, why didn't you know? That's why in the code book, there's a whole section on questions that you ask before you head to that bedroom. And anybody who skips over a question, or if you agree to skip over questions, remember what you did. You agreed to this. You might meet each other for the first time, and 5 minutes later you're in bed. Now, if you are dissatisfied about anything after that, that's too late. So all the talking, everything that you want to know about that other person should be done before the first bedroom incident, according to the code. And it's a bunch of questions that are listed in the textbook for victims of white supremacy that should be asked and answered by both people, including the agreement to do that. You say, I don't even want to know your name. I'm just ready to go to bed. I'm going to bed with somebody. You're the first person I saw. So let's go. Let's get it on. A number of people are like that, but I don't think most people are like that. They want to do a little bit of talking first. Just a little bit anyhow. And then according to the code, you should do a whole lot, because that's serious business. It should be taken seriously. It's in the book. You go to it under the 8th area of activity, sex. Lots of questions about that.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Corey. Mr. Fuller, we have about 7 minutes remaining in the first hour. Let's talk about your book. The floor is yours, Mr. Fuller.
Well, everything that I'm talking about, most of it is in the book. Just about all of it, because I rely on the book, because I forget things that I wrote. But I've thought about things that I have written, and that's why it's in the book, because it keeps coming back to me. The same questions that I try to answer for other people, I've asked myself. And I've tried to come up with suggestions about what to do about things and run tests on some of them. I'd say about half. But I always make clear that in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, no one has solved the problem of racism, white or non-white. Everybody wrings their hands about it, which is what I'm doing, even as I'm talking. It's just hand-wringing. Nobody has done it. That's why no one has the constructive logic that they can display to disagree with another person's approach to solving the race problem. So this book is about replacing the system of white supremacy, which is the race problem, with the system of justice. Replace white supremacy with justice. And what is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help each and every day, everywhere on the planet. And that's in every area of activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. If you don't have that, justice is not in existence. Every person is not mistreated. Now, where does that exist? That's why on this day of so-called celebration, makes no sense at all. Education does. Now, black people should educate, not celebrate. That's two different things. Learn everything that there is to learn that you can use that may be of constructive value. That's what education is. Knowing everything. You're not educated until you know everything of constructive value. So education is a process. And it keeps going on and on and on. As long as what? As long as you know everything that you need to know. In order to do what? In order to produce the most constructive result. And if you don't have that qualification, you are not yet educated. You're not an educated person. Something else that people say. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about what's in the book. And also there's a word guide that goes with it. What is an educated person? A person that knows everything that they need to know at the times they need to know it. And if you can't do that, you're not educated. So who has that much knowledge? I never heard of such a person. I don't care if they're a rocket scientist. You might not know what's in your food that day that made you sick because you weren't there when somebody prepared the food. How about that? So you do what? You go to a doctor and say, "Doctor, what's wrong with me?" And you're a nuclear scientist. Doctors get sick and go to other doctors and say, "I got to find out what's wrong with me." Or go to a technician who doesn't know as much as the doctor, but they know how to operate the machine.
Mm-hmm.
See, we are supposed to be people who do things and think things on a level that people have never thought of before. That's where black people should be in 2023. But we don't want to know anything except what we call ghetto culture. If it ain't about getting down on the blocks, it ain't about nothing. Well, is this intelligent? Is this how to grow? Well, what's going on the block? Since that's what your proposal is, man, when we get down, what do you mean? And see, that's another thing. Black people got language, and the book talks about this. Black people use a language that's not attached to nothing, that you can make sense of. We talk about love more than anybody. Love, love, love. Pray about it. Do all that. That word, it should be banned from black people's dictionary altogether until we figure out what we're talking about. Black love. Heaven forbid if this mess that we do is called love. And I'm saying all of the mess that we do, because it's all a mess. Even those of us who consider ourselves not messy. We are messy. You can't be a victim of white supremacy without being a messed up person. That's impossible. So you take care of that right out of the gate. You're messed up. I'm messed up. That's what this book is about. straightening out the mess.
Okay. So where can we get this book at, Mr. Fuller?
Go to producejustice.com and go from there.
All righty, producejustice.com. Okay, that concludes the first hour. So those of you who have to go, okay, you're released. But we have a second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. So thank you for listening. But for those who are going to hang on, as we will start the second hour in 5 seconds. Thank you. All righty, welcome back to the second hour. Yes, you heard me correctly. Welcome back to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. And we hope that you had an opportunity to listen to the first hour, but here we are in the second hour. So if you would like to get in contact with the show, you know the numbers, but we'll give them to you anyway. Here they are. 516-453-9921. That's the number to get in contact with the show. You have a question, as Dollar Bill does coming up. All you have to do is press that number 1 button and be sure that you can ask your question, but make it quick or concise so that Mr. Fuller can fully understand the question as much as possible to give you the answer to that question. So make sure you do that. If you are a first-time caller, please, ma'am, please, sir, give your name to the call screener so that I can properly give you an introduction, and then you can go ahead and ask your question, and you don't have to be scared. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And depending upon the volume of calls, I will get to it, or it goes into rotation, as I've read a couple today, and it looks like I may have an opportunity to read some more of your Gmails. But if you do send me a Gmail by going to the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at some point in time, I will read it. And the last way to join the program and all the other happenings, you can go to the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on Programs menu, and then when you do that, then the menu for the Produce Justice show comes up. That's the one you want to hit. Hit that, and then that makes the chat room available to you, and you can get into the chat room and hear the conversations that are in there. Recluse is in there. Emery Lumumba. J2K2 is there. Justice Warriors is there. Solars is there. Texas Green 777 is in there. There are a lot of people that are in there, and they make comments. And occasionally I will select a comment to be read that I will get Mr. Fuller's opinion on it. However, do not use the chat room to ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller, because my saying, that ain't happening, Captain. That's what the phone number is for, and the Gmail is for, to ask your questions. But enjoy the chat. You can learn something in there, as we are all still learning. And not because Mr. Fuller said it. You're still learning. All righty. So I think they said, oh, yes, and the book. That's the most important thing. Make sure that you go to producejustice.com. Check it out. Even if you've been there before, see what's new there. Check it out. Get that information on knowing how to combat racism, which is white supremacy, from suggestions that Mr. Fuller has made in the book, and ask questions. Why? Okay. All righty. Speaking of why, and I see Lenora has joined. Thank you, Laura. And the person in the 819 prefix, please give the call screener your name. But in the meantime and in between time, we're going up to New York. Oh, yeah. We're going to get the holler from the dollar. Dollar Bill, are you ready? Because I'm getting ready to put it on the cursor on that mic, and there you go. Dollar Bill, you're there. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I want to thank you, Mr. Bobby, for remembering me, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Good morning, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask, I kind of jumped in there late, about 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late in the first hour. But I wanted to know, I'm looking at the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, the word guide right now, because a question came up today, and I thought I was torn with it, because I'm saying to myself, am I not, well, the question was, are you patriotic? And I know Mr. Fuller has it in the book on page 284 and his word guide about patriot and patriotism. And I didn't get to really read it because I just looked it up as you called my name today. But I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller, being that he does say use these words to apply mostly to yourself, he doesn't usually start like that. He says use the term with caution. That's usually what he usually says. But in reference to patriot and patriotism, he says use these words to apply mostly to yourself and to others at any time. So I wanted to ask him, I didn't finish what it says, but I wanted to ask him, is he patriotic? And I'll stay on the line, Mr. Bobby.
Okay,
and
all
let
right.
him discuss
Mr.
that.
Fuller?
And yes.
I am totally patriotic in answer to the question.
Okay.
Now, I'll explain it just in case people get confused. When people ask me, actually, in another frame of reference, but I answered that question the way the questioner asked me, am I patriotic? And I said, I'm totally patriotic. The way that it's listed in the code book is when somebody asks me about patriotism or we're discussing patriotism, the code says, and this is how it is in the book, I know of no person more patriotic than myself. Now, what does that mean, being patriotic? According to the code, it means I am against white supremacy and for justice. My goal is to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And you can't get more patriotic than that. Why? Because the system of white supremacy is the most evil system on planet Earth in 2023. That's why. And if you're against white supremacy and for justice, it's impossible to be more patriotic than that. That's impossible for anybody on the planet. I don't care where they are, in Mongolia. If you're against white supremacy and for justice, you're a patriot. You're a universal patriot. And it doesn't get no better than that. It's impossible. And that's the suggestion, according to the code, for everybody to use just what I just said. You're a patriot? In answer to that question, are you a patriot? I know of no person more patriotic. Might be some animal somewhere or something like that, but I know of no person. You're not saying other people are not patriotic, but you know of no person more patriotic than yourself if you are doing everything you can to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That's impossible. for anybody to be more patriotic than that. End of story. According to the code. Now have somebody prove that you're not. But after you've said that, you've said it all. Doesn't get no better than that. It's impossible for anything, under any circumstance, for anybody describing themselves in any other way when it comes to patriotism. So that takes care of that. That's why we need a code. See, pay attention to words. Patriotism. And think of all the ways that a person can be patriotic. Well, for the biggest problem on the planet, if you're against white supremacy and you're for justice, it's impossible to be more patriotic than that. So you can say it just like I said it, and who's going to prove you're different? Who's going to say that you're not? Where's the evidence? Now, you don't have evidence that you are, but I'm talking about what you say, what your intentions are. Because patriotism has to do with intentions, too.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you have intentions that if you got that kind of intention, just your intention, that's it. You got it all. So we can move on from patriotism to another word or some other subject. But you have wrapped that up. And you can tell any audience that.
Yes, sir.
Or anybody who wants you to make out a form talking about your patriotism. You're against racism and for justice. How can you get more patriotic than that? That should be your question.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, Dollar Bill with the holler. Appreciate it. Thank you. And you asked to stay on the line, so we'll keep you on the line. Just as a reminder, for those who are on the chat room, you can ask a question for the chatters, but remember, if you want to ask Mr. Fuller a question, use the telephone number or the Gmail address. Please, I'm asking you to do that or put that in your memory. All righty. Okay, continuing on, let's go to Lenora. Lenora, get ready. I'm getting ready to put this cursor on there. Okay, Lenora, good morning, and you are on with Mr. Fuller.
Good morning. It's Leona. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning,
good
Mr.
morning.
Fuller. I have 3 items, but I'll be quick. Listen, Mr. Fuller, in the original version of the code book on page 86, you say, do not depend on other persons to help you to speak and or act against injustice in matters of labor or employment. My question is it, can you depend on other persons to help you speak and or act against injustice in any matters? Do you think that that when can a person depend on other persons to help them speak and or act against injustice in any matters? I hope that question was clear.
Yes, I have the question. It's clear. You ask people to help you because black people worldwide are helpless. We need more help than anybody, mentally, physically, economically, any of the 9 areas of activity. We need more help than anybody, people who are classified as black. We're not self-sufficient in anything. But you can't depend on it. See, because when you think that you can depend on help, you may not get it. So It's what's in your mind. You always ask for help. Because if you're classified as black in the system of white supremacy, and you are in the system of white supremacy, that's the only government you're subject to on planet Earth, and you're a prisoner of war of that system, prisoners of war are completely dependent on the prison master. That's self-evident. So you do depend for everything on the prison masters. But you keep in mind that you may not get what you want. That's what I mean by dependent on it. Don't have it in mind that you're going to get what you're asking for. Have it in mind that you're not going to get anything of constructive value that you're asking for. So you don't depend on it with that in mind. Now, that might be one of the things that I put in the book that was not explained in detail. That's why you were probably prompted to ask that question. Mm-hmm. I should have said more or something. I'd have to double-check what I have in there. But that's why I go on the air, to try to clarify some things while I can. Yes, I've said on the air many times, and this is true, that the book is poorly written. It's one of the best. This is the way I put it out here, because I say it's true. It's one of the best of the worst written counter-racist guides ever produced. And that's the truth. Because everything in the book is supposed to be based on truth. So I have to say that, since I didn't say it on the book, in the book. I should have put that right on one of the front pages. This is one of the best of the most poorly written books on what to do about racism ever to exist. But it's one of the best of the worst.
One of the best of the worst. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. What's your second question, Nick?
Okay. Yes, Mr. Fuller, yeah, I agree with what you said about your book. I've heard Dr. Walsing on recording call your book a manual of chess moves for this system of racism, white supremacy, and that's how I've been looking at it lately. Second question, well, actually I have two, but that speech by Frederick Douglass to What is a Slave is the 4th of July in 1842. Have you ever heard that one, Mr. Fuller, or read that one?
I've heard it a number of times. I've read it a number of times. And I heard it just this morning on television, because a lot of people are repeating those words. James Earl Jones on one of the stations read the entire speech this morning on some film that was made or something.
Okay, last question quickly has to do with fear, Mr. Fuller. Now, in the word guide, you define fear. You say, use this word to apply to the absence of knowledge and or understanding of how to compensate for the lack of knowledge and or understanding. You know, when I'm feeling fear, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that particular definition. But I'm curious, what is the process that I should use to overcome fear? Say I got to, confront a situation of injustice, and I'm a little fearful about it, but it has to be done. What's the best? What do you use to, what's the mechanics of that process of getting over fear or of putting into action
universal
this thing about
law?
I'm sorry, what?
If you don't mind me interjecting, and go right to the point. It's a universal law about conquering fear. You conquer fear by knowing and understanding what's causing your fear. you have to know and that's why I say you got to know and understand white supremacy in order to get through this world. I mean, in a better manner. So it comes down to what? Knowledge. Knowledge. Why are you afraid? You're afraid because there's something about your situation that you don't know. So you find out about your situation, everything that you're fearful of. Why am I afraid? What am I afraid of? And why? And you ask yourself that first. Then you try to learn from somebody who knows more than you know. So how do you do that? Same thing that's why I say it's universal law. You learn faster about anything from somebody who does know. Which means and what's the way to find out things from someone who knows something that you don't know? Ask questions. That's why the code book says the key to solving problems, always, without fail, is to ask questions. But you have to ask questions of somebody who knows what you don't know. That's all it is. And the more you learn, just like a baby trying to walk, the less fearful the baby is. Just use that as an example. That's also in the code book. The baby cries every time it falls down, but it tries and tries again. And what the baby is doing is questioning. The baby can't even talk, but the baby is trying to walk because the baby sees other people walking. He sees these creatures moving past the crib. First thing the baby tries to do is to stand up in the crib and then hold on because the baby falls down and cries, but the baby just keeps getting up. Now, every time the baby gets up, the baby what? Learns something. And the baby can't even talk. But if you've observed babies in a crib, they learn. That's another thing. By keeping on. You don't give up. You just keep going. And you learn by observing, and when you observe, you're learning. And you copy what is successful. And you learn by trial and error what is not. But the main thing is to keep on, keeping on. And that means what? Asking questions. Because it's something about the universe that the person who asks the most questions will get the most answers. You just keep asking questions. That's the formula for getting rid of fear. Ask questions of people who know more about how to eliminate that fear. Driving a 18-wheel truck. That person wasn't born knowing how to drive a 18-wheeler. I mean, just going down the highway listening to music. The person wasn't born doing that. Well, how did the person learn to do that? From somebody who knew how to do it. Person never saw an 18-wheeler maybe in their lives, and then 20 years old. But they went where people had 18-wheel trucks, and they say, "What is that?" They say, "I'll show you." And so the person learns from someone who already knows. But you have to ask questions. And that person asks what? What is that?
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And I'm almost intimidated to say the name because I might mess it up. But thank you for asking the question. I'll just say Lee right now until I get the proper say it properly, because I don't want to. I've already messed it up once. But thank you for your call. You are a consistent listener, and we do thank you for your call. Let's take a break here. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, also called the CRCS. If you have a question or a brief comment, all you have to do is to call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button so that you can be heard. Please, ma'am, please, sir, be brief. And if you are a first-time caller, again, just make sure that you tell the call screener that so you can give them your name so that I could give you an introduction without messing it up or butchering it or however I do it. It's not on purpose. It's just one of the things that I'm still learning to be better. In fact, yeah, the whole thing, trying to be better to get better. You can also Gmail me at the number 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. It probably will not be read today. Some of them have been read. They also are stacked up, and as the show permits, then that's how we read the Gmail. So just because you send it, and it may not be read at a time that you think it is, it will be read as soon as the time is available for it to be read. So don't be alarmed at that. And lastly, you can join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. Make sure that you click on programs. When you do that bad boy, then the shows will come up. And you want to get the menu that says the Produce Justice Show. You click on that. And the chat room is available for you. Now, we do this, every week because we have new callers that call in every week. And some people want to get into the chat room, so we have to repeat it for those new people that get on. So give them a break, or you understand the process. Yes, that's how we do it. Don't forget, if you haven't, and it's particularly for those who are new to the programs, you can get the book that Mr. Fuller is suggesting or talked about, and these are suggestions only that are in the book, by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. And as you heard, if you've been listening to the program, Dollar Bill was referencing some, I think the word was patriarchy, that was in the word guide, because there are 3 books, but that's good. And he asked a question on that. He wanted some clarification on that, and Mr. Fuller did that. So that's why one of the many reasons why it is important that you have the materials in front of you so that you can ask your questions. Why this? Why that? That way you get knowledge, and always in the category of still learning. Okay. Let's see here. This brother, as we continue on, don't forget 516-453-9921 is the number that you call to get on the show. This comes from Rosamond. It's been on for a long time, but I'm going to read the question as he has written it. It says, greetings, Mr. Fuller. My question is, according to the compensatory counter-racist code and logic, is an individual trying to be the most constructive in the use of their time and energy an act of counter-war, a process of producing justice, or something else? And why?
Is a person using their time and energy
an act of counter-war, a process of producing justice, or something else? And why?
Because anything that produces a constructive result that a person says or does works against the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy is designed to deliberately be an unjust system, meaning mistreat people. It's designed to do that. The white supremacists used to brag about it, but now they want it taken out of the history books. I mean, runaway slave, making jokes about the people that they mistreated. I mean, most jokes at one time in the Northwestern Hemisphere and in other parts of the world. Sambo jokes. Everything is about the darky. You want to laugh, you want to cheer yourself up, and you're white, tell a joke about a black person. That gives you energy. Everything derogatory that you can think of. Write books of jokes. Sambos. 10 little Negro boys sitting on a fence, et cetera, et cetera. So anything that a non-white person does that helps to do something of constructive value, constructive, that's what you want, and producing constructive results should be the goal every breath that you take. That breath that I took, it was given to me. Now, I owe the source of that breath that I took. And what do I owe? Producing constructive results with that breath that I received while I was sleeping. Just breathing. That was a gift while you were sleeping. So every breath that you take while you were asleep, you owe some results from that. And what do you owe? Making the world the way it ought to be, because it ain't nowhere near being what it ought to be. The people of this planet, like I said earlier in the last hour, are tacky in everything that we do. We don't care. It doesn't make any difference how perfect it might look. It's tacky. Or trashy, or terroristic. Now, how do you know that it's tacky, Fuller? Tacky means just sloppily put together. That's the kind of the way people treat each other. And how do people treat each other? Tacky, trashy, terroristic. One or the other. And it doesn't get no better than tacky. Why? Because the fact that people kill each other anywhere on the planet means that everything is all messed up, if you want to use that slang expression. Okay. What's messed up? Everything. Because somewhere somebody's killing somebody right now, just on that alone. You don't have to go add nothing else. You don't have to go looking for a long list. On that alone. Are black people killing each other anywhere on the planet? And if the answer is yes, then black people are tacky, trashy, and terroristic. If you're talking about black culture, tacky, and what about white people? Are they that way? Yes. So nobody has bragging rights here on this July the 4th, 2023. Nobody. Going around talking about having parades and bragging about bragging, and talking about having fireworks while you're bragging. What are fireworks supposed to remind you of? Just that. Fireworks. 9mm guns. Muskets. Blunderbuss gun. Going far back as there's been a gun or a knife or a sword designed to do what? Kill somebody.
Exactly.
So nobody has a history, as far as I've heard of, no tribe that anybody should be proud of. So no celebrations are ever in order as long as that is a fact, and that's been a fact right from day one.
Yes, sir.
At least going, if you use the Christian criteria, Cain and Abel. Or, before that, Adam and Eve, who I understand did something that shouldn't have been done. And a lot of people said that people came before Adam and Eve. They weren't the first people. It depends on what religion you pick. Well, whomever the first people were, somebody messed up. And it ain't never been straightened out since. So nobody has bragging rights. Not Mr. Putin, not Neely Fuller. I ain't got nothing to brag about. I'm proud to be black. Well, did you make yourself black? Well, then what are you proud of? What are you proud of, Neely Fuller? Are you crazy? And the answer is yes to that question. In fact, you ain't got nothing to be proud of. Look at the mess around you. Look at you, Neely Fuller. Why haven't you cleaned up the mess? You wrote a book. You say, well, you're trying. Well, now, that gets to a thing about the code and solid. You don't get credit for trying.
Yes, sir.
This is rough. This is rough business. Keep trying, but you ain't going to get no credit. You got to do the job, Fuller. You got to be smart enough to do the whole thing in order for anybody to even thank you. Because this is crunch time. You don't get paid for yardage. It's only when you're in the end zone every time you touch the ball. That's the kind of game this is now. You want to compare it to football.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Every time you touch the ball, you take it into the end zone. Otherwise, you ain't qualified even to be on the field. That's how you should look at it.
Okay. The thought just came to my mind as you were speaking about that, Mr. Fuller. I think about this verse, the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, and then fireworks, explosion, and then implosion. What does that symbolize? Yeah, death. Death. New caller alert. Ronnie, we're going to get to you, but I have to ask this question before I get to you. Okay. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention this person's name, but anyway, this person wrote, Mr. Fuller, if the purpose, hang on, Ronnie, new caller, we're going to get you. So if the purpose of the counter racist code is to assist all thought, speech, and or action of non-white people towards compelling the white supremacists to either produce justice throughout the known universe or eliminate all non-white people, is there anything that the non-white people, Mr. Fuller, can do to attain justice outside of it being granted by racist man and racist woman?
No. That's impossible. We're victims. We're in their prison. We're not on some other planet. We're on planet Earth. And the white supremacists run planet Earth. There's not any other people that run anything, even though they may look like they're running it. The white supremacists know all about what everybody's doing on this planet. There's not nothing that they don't know. Whatever black people know, I'll put it that way, the white supremacists know it. There ain't nothing mysterious about black people in the system of white supremacy. All the tacky, trashy, terroristic behavior that black people commit, we learned it from our masters. The people on the planet now. Now, people might say, well, 10 trillion years ago, black people did this and did that. This is not 10 trillion years ago. This is now. the compensatory code is about now. What do you do now? I want to hear about 1,000 years ago and the great empires. Now, even when you describe that, that's tacky, trashy, and terroristic. An empire means you were mistreating somebody. Now, there's no recorded history of among black people or any non-white people of any kind or any white people. There's no record of there ever being a time when nobody on the planet was being mistreated, other than some people say back in biblical times, paradise, the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't but a couple of people that started with what I heard. So, but mistreatment came out of that. In the form of well, that's what I heard.
Okay.
But I'm not going to go further into that. But
alrighty.
We are here to straighten out everything that needs straightening out. And nobody can take a bow. Keep that in mind, because this is July the 4th and it's supposed to be another holiday, another holy day. And there's all this nonsense, bombs bursting in the air. That alone disqualifies everybody.
That alone.
You don't even imitate that kind of foolishness. July the 4th should instantly be one of the quietest days of the year, where everybody goes and sits down in a corner and reflects on what should be done to correct this messed up world. If you want to talk about how to, quote, unquote, celebrate July the 4th or any other July.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for saying that. Absolutely. All righty. New caller alert. Here we go. Wait a minute. Let me get this over here so I can get this person on. Okay, Ronnie, get ready. Don't be scared. Ask your question. Here we go, Ronnie. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. I had a comment. I wanted to read something from, I was watching a movie called The Great Debaters with Denzel Washington yesterday, and he was training his students. Denzel was the instructor, and he was training his students, his class, on debating. And he started off with, who is the judge? And then the class response was, the judge is God. And then he replied, why is he God? And response was, because he decides who wins or loses, not my opponent. Who is your opponent? He does not exist. Why does he not exist? Because he is a mere descending voice of the truth. And that was from The Great Debaters with Denzel Washington. And I just wanted to share that. I thought it might be something to throw in the pot, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bob.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Ronnie. That's called, as Mr. Fuller calls it, a VGQ. Thank you for your comment there. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go back up here. See, dollar bill's still hanging. Okay. Now, people, we got only a certain amount of time, so make your question short so that Mr. Fuller can answer your question in the remaining time that we have. Okay, Studi, Canada, you're on. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir.
My question has to do with, for Mr. Fuller, is regarding sometimes when he's being asked a question, he sometimes referred to his notes that he wrote, and sometime during his thoughts and expression segment, he shared codified information that is not in the code book. I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller if he had any thought about making a new edition of the code book, or how can the listening audience can access those notes in helping us solve the risk problem and stay focused.
All right, Mr. Fuller?
Do I have some notes that are not in the code book? Is that the question?
Yes. Usually, sometimes
I got
notes. Yeah.
No, it's no way for me to do that. I take notes all the time, all day long. I mean, on the back of carton boxes, and I take notes. My notes are scattered all over the place. I just throw them in a bag and say I'll get through them later. But it's not necessary if you pay attention to what I've already written. But, that's just the way that I have to do that. Even with my own book, I have to, people, if you ask me a question out of the book right now, and I have the books right in front of me, if I want to be accurate, I have to look it up, because I don't remember what I wrote. My memory is getting to be atrocious, and my ability to answer questions are nowhere near what they should be. And I started off that way. I didn't know how to answer a question, and I still don't, as everybody knows who listens to this program. Neely Fuller Jr. does not know how, the best way to go about answering a question, even when the question is repeated. And that's a flaw. These people are flawed. Neely Fuller is no exception. He's a super flaw. And I know I'm a superb flaw, because I started out to solve the race problem, and I haven't done it. So Neely Fuller, you start measuring him, and his notes and all like that, is a failure, because I didn't accomplish so far what I set out to do. You don't accomplish what you set out to do, you're a failure. So you just keep trying until you what? Succeed in what you started out to do. But I got a lot of company, but that's no comfort to me. Because so far, all black people, according to logic, are failures. Because we're supposed to be getting rid of the system of racism, and we haven't done it. So we have failed so far. But you only fail until you had your last time at bat. But then, that's it. You weren't destined to succeed. You were just destined to help somebody else to succeed. So that's your next logical thought in that process. If you don't succeed in what you're trying to do, maybe somebody else who has watched one or two of the things you set out to do and just kept trying. The first person that tried to fly didn't make it. They didn't make that machine help them to fly. Whether it was a balloon or a bicycle or whatever, it didn't work out. The first person that tried, or maybe the 10th person, or the 1,000th person.
Okay. All right, Studi from Canada, thank you for your call here. Now, that person that wanted to know about that one particular book or documentary, it's called Without Sanctuary. I spoke of that a couple of weeks ago. Without Sanctuary, I'll give you a word of caution. It could be very disturbing, and it is very disturbing to a lot of people, even to myself. But Without Sanctuary, powerful book about the history of lynching. Okay, let's go down to Texas, and we're going to be with Delbert. Delbert, let's see if we can get you in here. Okay, Delbert, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I have a problem with the word choice. To me, that word is very confusing, and I haven't found it in the word guide. And it used to mean the best of something, but now people use it like in the phrase no choice. So it can also mean the worst of something. But I was wondering why Ms. Fuller didn't put the word choice in the word guide.
Because I didn't think of it, and I didn't think that. I just didn't think of it. That's really the answer. Because there are thousands of words that are not in the word guide. I just said that. That's why I call it a codified word guide. It's not like a dictionary. I'd like for it to be, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of words. Many of them are obsolete. Words that people don't even use anymore. If you go to a well-stocked library, you might find an English-speaking dictionary of the English language that you have sitting on wheels. It's on a dolly or something like that, or some type of lectern that you cannot move. The book is so big, it's so heavy. The average person, they would break their back trying to lift the book. Literally. You couldn't lift the book. You just have to, one of these ancient books that's a complete word guide or dictionary of the English language. It's one language. And it might give the whole history of one word that might take up 50 pages. One word. In that huge dictionary, the whole history of how the word got started. Who put the word in there? People make up words. Words are made up by people for communicative purposes. So down through the ages, the definitions of words have changed, which is what I did with the word guide. I just changed the definition. I said an American, an African, and an Asian all have the same definition. I did that, and I'm pushing it because it's true. There are people who practice justice, and since nobody practices justice, there's no such thing as an American or an Asian or an African. And a person who says, oh, yes, there is, then give me the definition. I hear black people say that Americans, did this and Americans did that. Well, that's impossible. They don't exist. They never have existed. They named that name came from what they say, a person's name, Amerigo Vespucci. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly.
That's correct.
And he was a journalist, a person that just wrote about a place that he called America. Now, are you going to say that that's the person that's going around doing this and doing that now? Or is it some other people or another person? America mistreats people. Who are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about white supremacists. Well, the code says, why didn't you say that? You ever stop to think about what you're saying?
Who inspired this?
If you mean white supremacists, don't take an hour to say it. Just say it right out the gate. Well, white folks. What white folks? Well, the white people that mistreat black people. Well, what do you call them? White supremacists. Correct? Racists. Correct? You say, yeah. Well, why couldn't you say that at first without saying Americans? When Americans have never existed. I'm talking about college professors, been doing it for years, and even when they hear me say what I'm saying now, they keep doing it. And it's simply not true. There's no evidence of that being true. None. Americans have never existed. And the people who talk about it, who the founders of it, here on July the 4th, when they were talking about America, that's what they were talking about, a work in progress. They call it that. That it doesn't exist. We're trying to make it exist. And then people will stand right there at the microphone and all day long talking about America this. It's the title of thousands and millions of books. Americans did this, and they have never existed, not for 1 second, because of the definition that the code has. Americans do not mistreat people, and Americans guarantee that anybody who needs help gets it. And no people have ever done that in recorded history.
Okay.
Same way with Africans and Asians. They're works in progress too. And they all mean the same thing. Guarantees that nobody's mistreated. Who is guaranteed that? Guaranteed that people that need help the most always get it. Who is guaranteed that? Nobody. Ever. In recorded history.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Delbert. And let's go to the last question. Let's go to Mike in Tulsa. Mike, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, gentlemen. I almost thought you weren't going to get to me, Mr. Bobby, but it's great to be able to talk with you again and to listen to Mr. Fuller. I just have a quick VGQ and a short question that I'd like to ask. My heart breaks a little every time I hear Mr. Fuller say that his book is the best of the worst written books on counter-racism. And I understand his sentiment, but I'd like to say that the contribution that he's made is, I think, witnessed by the people that call into the show and that listen to the show is quite significant. And I just personally feel that self-deprecation doesn't serve construction action. And he mentioned a little bit earlier about patriotism, saying that, we should consider ourselves the best patriots that we know. And it's sort of a desire that I have in my heart to have him consider himself the best of the best written counter-racist books that are available, because in the absence of the best written, the best of the worst written has to be the best of the best written, if that makes any sense. So what I'd like to ask Mr. Fuller is whether he knows of a book that is the best of the best written of a counter-racist guide. Yes, thank you.
No, I don't know of any specific book. Now, any book that a person picks up, according to the code, what I've written, anything that you learn that has a constructive result. You learn, and when you apply what you've read or learned from a book, that was the book that helped you to produce whatever constructive result you produce. And if you pass that information on, if the person who gets that information, because books are supposed to provide information, usually something, if it's written, if it's worth reading at all, it provides some type of information, even a book of fiction, that inspires a person to do something constructive, and that person does that thing that was in that book and transfers that into reality, meaning making it real, making it happen, and the result was something constructive. That is always a part of the code itself, what I call the compensatory code. Because the compensatory code is a philosophy. It's like justice. It's an idea until it finally becomes reality. Just an idea, like America, like Africa. It's an idea. That's none of which, so far, has come into reality, because we don't have justice anywhere on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So everybody can measure whatever they say, well, I'm successful in what I've done. Well, you evaluate that according to what you set out to do. That's the way that works. I set out not in the beginning, but about the year 2020, I said, I'm no longer trying to make a contribution. I'm trying to solve the race problem.
Mm-hmm.
I set that goal for myself. Nobody set that goal. So I either do it or I don't. Now, I'm not trying to make a contribution. All the people that went before me, I'm looking at it like they made a contribution. Now it's up to me to build on Martin Luther King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Sojourner Truth and everybody who did anything, even for 5 minutes. I'm building on what they did that had a constructive result. So therefore, Neely Fuller is supposed to be down at the, almost standing at the finish line. Okay, Fuller, step across the finish line. I mean, all those people that ran down the field before you and then handed you the ball, step across the finish line, Fuller. Now, if I don't step across that finish line when I said it as the person, give me the ball when I'm standing near the finish line or wherever I think is the finish line, why don't I do it? I say, there's the finish line, Fuller. You got the ball. Everything is on you. So if I don't do it and I set that goal for myself, now nobody set that goal for myself, then I'm a failure.
Yeah, well.
And that's the truth. See, this is not about personalities. This is about business.
Unfortunately, Mr. Fuller, I hate to do it, but the music has started and the program has expired, so thank you. Thank you, all the callers. And forgive us for any mistakes that we made. We made plenty of them, but we'll try to get better for next week's show. But thank you. Final word for you, Mr. Fuller.
Finish line. Get the job done.
Okay.
Anybody that even talks about it nowadays, according to the code, should be talking about, let's wrap this thing up in the next 24 hours.
Okay. ProduceJustice.com. Thank you, everybody.
ProduceJustice.com.
Okay.